And when people asked him what changed, what was the turning point, what was the thing that made the difference, he didn't talk about a strategy. He didn't talk about a mentor or a book or a system. He talked about what he let go of. He said, I stopped carrying things that were never mine to carry. Ndaka. I removed the weight and then I could finally move. I need you to remember that image. The weight and then the movement. Because that is exactly what today is about or today is about. Let's talk about the first thing you need to remove from your life immediately. It might be the most destructive force on the planet. It has ended more careers, destroyed more relationships, and killed more dreams than any disease, any war, any external enemy ever could. And it lives right here between your ears. Yes. First thing you need to remove is the need for other people's approval. Let me say that again so it settles into your bones. The need for other people's approval. Don't you have been running a race your entire life? Wake up in the morning and before you even decide what you want, before you even check in with your own heart and ask yourself what brings you alive, you are already calculating. What will they think? What will my parents say? What will my colleagues think if I try this? What will my friends say if I fail? What will the people who doubted me say if I go for it and fall flat on my face? You are living your life in a constant performance review, and the judges aren't even qualified to evaluate you. Most of the people whose approval you are chasing are too busy fighting their own battles to even notice what you're doing. And the ones who are watching, the ones who are commenting and critiquing and whispering, they are not living the lives they want either. They are projecting their own fear onto you because it's easier to watch someone else fail than to risk failing yourself. I want to tell you something about approval. The deepest, most painful truth about the need for approval is that it is a moving target. It never stays still. You cannot catch it. You cannot satisfy it. You reach one milestone, and instead of feeling the joy of achievement, you are already looking around to see who noticed. And if they didn't notice, or if they noticed but didn't applaud loud enough, or if they applauded but then moved on too quickly, the emptiness returns. Hunger returns, and you go back out there chasing it again. It is the most exhausting treadmill in existence, and it is powered entirely by your own insecurity. God was talking to a woman once, a brilliant, talented, extraordinary woman who had been offered the opportunity of a lifetime. Chance to launch her own company, to step into a role that was perfectly designed for her gifts. And she turned it down. She turned it down because her mother said, "That's too risky. People like us don't do things like that." People like us, think about what that phrase does to a human being. Draws a circle around you and says, "This is your world. Don't go beyond these lines." And this woman, because she had spent her whole life needing her mother's approval, because her identity was built on the foundation of her mother's opinion of her. 2 years later, she watched someone else launch that exact same company and build it into something remarkable. And she came to me and said, "I can't stop thinking about what could have been." And I looked at her and I said, Stop thinking about what could have been. Start thinking about what can still be. But first, you have to remove the approval addiction. You have to cut the cord. Here is the truth. The people who changed the world, every single one of them, were told they were wrong, were told they were crazy, were told to sit down, stay quiet, stay in their lane. Einstein was told he was mentally slow. Oprah was told she was unfit for television. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. JKK. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. 12. And every single one of those people had a moment, a defining moment, where they looked at the world's opinion of them and they said, "No, I know what I am, and I'm going to act on that knowledge whether you come with me or not." That moment of defiance, that is the birthplace of greatness. Remove the need for approval. Not because other people don't matter, not because relationships aren't important, but because your life, this one wild, precious, unrepeatable life, is not a performance for anyone else's benefit. It is yours. It belongs to you. And the day you start living for the audience in your heart instead of the audience in your head, everything changes. Now let's talk about the second thing. And this one I know is going to sting. Because it lives in almost every single person in this room. And most of you have been feeding it without even realizing it. The second thing you need to remove from your life immediately is the comfort zone, not discomfort, not risk, the comfort zone itself, the entire construct. You need to tear it down. I know. You've heard this before. Everyone talks about stepping outside your comfort zone, but I don't want to talk about stepping outside it. I want to talk about why you built it in the first place. Because you didn't build your comfort zone out of laziness. You built it out of fear. You built it the first time you tried something and it didn't work. You built it the first time you raised your hand in class and everyone laughed. You built it the first time you gave your heart to someone and they handed it back in pieces. You built it the first time you told someone your dream and they looked at you like you were naive. Every time the world responded to your reaching with rejection, you pulled back a little further. You made the circle a little smaller and you told yourself you were being practical. You told yourself you were being smart. You told yourself that safety was wisdom. But safety is not wisdom. Safety is just fear with better public relations. Nobody tells you about your comfort zone. It shrinks. It doesn't stay the same size. All. Every day you choose not to challenge it. It gets a little smaller. Every time you avoid the conversation you need to have. Every time you skip the workout. Every time you hit snooze instead of rising. Every time you choose the familiar over the possible, your comfort zone contracts. Until one day you look around and you realize that your world has become so small that there is barely room left for you to breathe. I want to tell you about a man named David. David was an athlete, a genuinely gifted athlete who had dreams of competing at the highest level. And one day, during a training session, he tore a ligament in his knee, a serious injury, long recovery, real pain. And David went through the surgery, went through the rehabilitation. And when it was time to return to training, he couldn't. Not physically. Physically, the knee had healed. But mentally, emotionally, he couldn't bring himself to push it. Every time he started to push the pace, every time he started to feel the fire building in his legs, he would feel a twinge of fear and he would pull back. And slowly, he stopped pushing entirely. He started running shorter distances, then shorter still, then walking. And eventually, David, this magnificent, gifted athlete, stopped moving altogether. And he told himself the story that his body was broken. But his body was fine. His comfort zone had simply consumed him. The tragedy of David's story is not that he got injured. The tragedy is that he allowed the fear of re-injury to write the ending of his story for him. He allowed his body to stop before his life was over. So I want you to think about your David. I want you to think about the area of your life where you got hurt, where you pulled back, where you told yourself it was sensible to stop reaching. And I want you to ask yourself, is that really finished? Or have you simply made peace with smallness? Because here is what I know about human beings. Here is what I know about you. You were not designed for smallness. You were not designed to be average. You were not designed to coast and cruise and manage and maintain. You were designed to reach. You were designed to stretch. You were designed to live at the edge of your capacity and then discover that your capacity is bigger than you thought. That is not a motivational slogan. That is biology. That is the fundamental truth of what it means to be human. And the moment you align your daily choices with that truth, the moment you start removing the comfort zone and replacing it with the growth zone, you will be shocked by what your life becomes. Let's move to the third thing. And this one is subtle. This one hides in plain sight, disguised as something harmless, something even noble. The third thing you need to remove from your life immediately is toxic relationships. And when I say toxic, I don't just mean the obvious ones. I don't just mean the abusive ones, the manipulative ones, the destructive ones. I mean the ones that are slowly, quietly, politely draining your energy. I mean the relationships that leave you feeling smaller after every interaction. The people who every time you share an idea find a reason why it won't work. The people who every time you make progress bring up your past. The people who say they love you but cannot stand to see you change. Those people, no matter how long you've known them, no matter how much history you share, no matter how much guilt you feel about it, those people are costing you your future. I need you to understand something about energy. Your energy is finite. Every single day you wake up with a certain reservoir of emotional, mental, and spiritual energy, and everything in your life draws from that reservoir. Your work draws from it. Your family draws from it. Your dreams draw from it. And every toxic relationship draws from it too. Except that toxic relationships don't just draw from the reservoir. They drain it before you even get started. They take from you in the middle of the night when you lie awake, replay playing a conversation. They take from you in the morning when you dread checking your phone. They take from you when you spend hours managing their emotions instead of building your life. I'm not telling you to be heartless. I'm not telling you to abandon people who are struggling. There is a difference between being there for someone who is fighting and being held down by someone who has given up. There is a difference between supporting someone through difficulty and being used as a cushion for their refusal to grow. You can love people from a distance. You can wish people well without walking with them. Every step of a path that leads nowhere. Jim Rohn said it best. And I will never stop quoting this man because he was right. He said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Stop right now and think about your 5. Who are they? What do they talk about? What do they dream about? How do they respond to failure? How do they respond to success? Not their success, but yours. Because the people around you are either a wind at your back or an anchor at your feet. And if you're surrounded by anchors and you wonder why you aren't flying, now you know to remove the toxic relationships. Not with cruelty, not with drama. Quietly, firmly, lovingly remove them. Protect your energy, protect your vision. The relationships that belong in your future are not in your past. They are waiting for you at the level you are choosing to rise to. And when you get there, you will wonder how you ever lived without those people. But you have to let go of what's behind you to reach what's ahead of you. Now let's talk about the fourth thing. And this one, I need you to really hear me on this. Because this one is perhaps the most universally devastating thing on this list. The fourth thing you need to remove from your life is the obsession with the past. Let me be clear about something. Your past happened. It is real. The pain you experienced is real. The trauma is real. The losses are real. I am not asking you to pretend that none of it happened. I am not asking you to toxic positivity your way through experiences that genuinely broke you. What I'm asking you to do is to stop letting your past write your present. Because here is the devastating truth about living in the past. The past cannot be changed, not by your thinking about it, not by your analyzing it, not by your resenting it, not by your grieving over it. The past is finished, it is locked, it is sealed. And every minute you spend living inside it is a minute you are stealing from the only time you actually have the power to change anything, which is right now. I have met people who are 40 years old and still making decisions based on what someone said to them when they were 9. I have met people who are destroying their current relationships because of what happened in a relationship that ended a decade ago. I have met people who are choosing careers based on wounds they received in childhood rather than gifts they were born with. The past, when you refuse to release it, becomes a prison. Not a prison with bars and walls, a prison with memories and stories. And you are both the prisoner and the guard. And only you can decide to walk out. There is a story, and I think about this story often, of a monk who was carrying a deep resentment towards someone who had wronged him. He had been carrying it for years, and one day his teacher gave him a burning coal and told him to hold it and think about the person who had wronged him. And within seconds, the monk's hand was burning. And the teacher said, "The coal is your resentment. You are holding it. The person who wronged you is not even in this room. They have moved on with their life. They are not burning. You are." And the monk dropped the coal, Whatever it is, whatever happened, whatever was done to you, whatever was said to you, whatever was taken from you, drop it. Not because the person who hurt you deserves your forgiveness. Drop it because you deserve your freedom. Because the weight of the past is the heaviest weight in existence, and you have been carrying it long enough. You have carried it so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to walk without it. But I promise you, when you let it go, when you really release it, when you make the decision to stop defining yourself by what was done to you and start defining yourself by what you are choosing to become, the lightness you will feel is indescribable. It feels like the first breath after being underwater for a very, very long time. Let's go to the fifth thing. And this one is deeply personal for me. The fifth thing you need to remove from your life immediately is the victim mentality. Now hold on. Before you shut down, before you get defensive, hear me out. Because I know that some of you have been through things that genuinely make you a victim. I know that some of you have experienced injustice, discrimination, loss, abuse, real things, profound things. And I'm not minimizing any of that. What I am asking you to look at is not what happened to you, but the story you are telling yourself about what it means. Because there is a difference between being a victim and living as one. You can experience victimization and still refuse to make victimhood your identity. In fact, the most powerful people I have ever met, the ones who rose from the most devastating circumstances, they all had one thing in common. They all made a decision at some point to say, what happened to me does not get to determine what happens through me. The victim mentality is seductive. I want to say that clearly because people don't talk about this. It is seductive because it feels like protection. As long as your failures are someone else's fault, you don't have to risk changing. As long as the system is the reason you're stuck, you don't have to do the terrifying work of trying to get unstuck. As long as your story begins with, because of what they did to me, you never have to write a new chapter. And the world around you, social media, certain communities, certain conversations will validate that narrative. They will tell you to stay in it. They will call it self-care. They will call it advocacy. And sometimes it is. But sometimes, it is just an escape from the responsibility of building your own life. I want to tell you about a woman named Kasia. Kasia grew up in poverty, real poverty. No father in the home, a mother who worked 3 jobs and was never there. Kasia was failed by the school system, failed by the community system, failed by nearly every institution that was supposed to protect her. And she had every justification in the world to spend her life pointing at those failures. And for a while, she did. She spent years angry, years blaming, years waiting for someone to acknowledge what had been done to her, to fix it, to make it right. And she told me, this is her story, not mine. She said, I was waiting for an apology that was never coming. I was waiting for permission to live. And one day I realized that nobody was coming. Nobody was going to ride in and make it fair. And so I had to decide, was I going to wait forever? Or was I going to move? Kasia moved. She went back to school at 32. She built a business from nothing. She now employs 14 people from the very neighborhood that once failed her. And she will tell you without any bitterness, that the best thing that ever happened to her was the moment she stopped waiting for the apology and started writing the comeback. Remove the victim mentality. Acknowledge your pain, honor your struggle, and then pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and build something magnificent out of the rubble. Now, the sixth thing. This one is a thief. A quiet, sophisticated, modern thief that has stolen more hours from more people than any other force I can think of in our current era. The sixth thing you need to remove from your life immediately is mindless distraction, talking about the hours, the countless, irreplaceable hours. The 3 hours you spent scrolling through a social media feed and came out feeling worse about your life than when you started. The 2 hours you spent watching videos that had nothing to do with anything you care about. The Saturday morning you lost to a YouTube rabbit hole that started with a recipe and ended with a documentary about an obscure historical event you'll never think about again. I am talking about the numbing, the endless, relentless, algorithmically optimized numbing of your consciousness. Because that is what distraction is at its core. It is not entertainment, it is anesthesia. It is the modern world's way of keeping you comfortable enough not to revolt against your own mediocrity. Think about this. The greatest minds in history, the ones who changed art, science, culture, thought, they had fewer distractions than you. They had boredom. And boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the incubator of creativity. It is in the quiet, in the stillness, in the I have nothing to do right now that your greatest ideas are born. But we have eliminated boredom. We have replaced it with an endless stream of content designed by teams of engineers to be maximally engaging, maximally addictive, maximally difficult to put down. And in doing so, we have not just wasted time. We have silenced the inner voice. Silenced the inner voice. We have drowned out the quiet wisdom that lives in stillness. We have made it almost impossible to hear the whisper of our own calling. Not to challenge you right now. I want to challenge you to think about how many hours last week you spent in mindless consumption. And then I want you to think about what you could have built, written, learned, created, or explored in those same hours. I am not saying never consume. I am saying be intentional about it. Choose your input like you choose your food, not based on what tastes best in the moment, but based on what nourishes you over time. Protect your attention. Because your attention is your life. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. And right now, for too many of you, your attention is going to things that diminish you instead of things that build you. Remove the mindless distraction, install the boundaries, create the space, and watch what rises into that space when you do. Watch what clarity emerges. Watch what creativity surfaces. Watch how differently you move through the world when you are not permanently sedated by screens. That's the seventh thing. And this one requires courage to hear. Real courage, because it goes against everything our culture tells us. The seventh thing you need to remove from your life immediately is the need to be right. The need to be right is one of the most relationship destroying, growth stopping, joy killing forces in human existence. And I say that as someone who has had to wrestle with it himself. Because there is something deeply satisfying, something almost chemically satisfying about winning an argument, about proving your point, about having the last word. It feels like victory. It feels like justice. And in the moment, it is incredibly compelling. But here's what the need to be right costs you. It costs you learning. Every time you defend your current position, instead of genuinely listening to a different perspective, you are choosing to stay exactly where you are. Every time you make an argument about winning instead of about truth, you close a door to growth. Every time you make someone feel wrong so that you can feel right, you damage a relationship that might have been a resource for your life. The need to be right is fundamentally the need to be safe. To have a fixed, defended, protected identity that doesn't have to be questioned. And fixed identities are like fixed structures in an earthquake. They don't survive the shaking. The most extraordinary people I have ever been privileged to know, the wisest, the most successful, the most genuinely alive, they are universally comfortable with being wrong. They love being wrong. They seek it out. They walk into conversations hoping to encounter a perspective that dismantles their current thinking. Because they understand that being wrong is not a defeat. It is a doorway. It is the universe's way of offering you an upgrade. And the people who refuse the upgrade, who cling to their rightness, who would rather win the argument than expand the mind, they stay stuck. They stay small. They stay ordinary. Remove the need to be right. Replace it with the hunger to be better. And watch every conversation in your life become a source of fuel. Let's talk about the eighth thing. And this one is going to hit hard. The eighth thing you need to remove from your life immediately is the glorification of busy. Busy is not a badge of honor. I need someone to hear that. Busy is not success. Busy is not purpose. Busy is not significance. Busy is often, not always, but often, a sophisticated form of avoidance. Because when we are busy, we don't have to sit with deeper questions. When we are busy, we don't have to ask ourselves whether the work we're doing actually matters, whether the life we're building is actually the one we want, whether the pace we're running at is sustainable, or whether we are running towards something or simply running away from something. How many times have you asked someone how they're doing and they said busy, so busy, crazy busy, never been busier, and there is pride in it. There is a kind of status in it, as if being overwhelmed is proof of importance, as if exhaustion is evidence of value. And our culture rewards this. Our culture glorifies the person who sleeps 4 hours and grinds 16. Our culture puts hustle on a pedestal, and in doing so, it has created an epidemic of people who are busy doing everything except the things that matter. Productivity is not the same as business. A person can be extraordinarily productive in 3 focused hours of deep work. A person can be completely busy for 12 hours and produce nothing of genuine value. The difference is not the number of hours. The difference is the intention, the clarity, the alignment between your actions and your actual priorities. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence? Not meditating, not praying, not journaling, just sitting and did nothing? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be still? To let your mind wander without directing it? To simply exist without producing, performing, or proving? If you can't remember, that is a problem. Because the capacity for stillness is not laziness, it is mastery. It is the mark of a person who is secure enough in who they are that they don't need to be in constant motion to feel valuable. Remove the glorification of busy. Replace it with the pursuit of purposeful. Do less, but do it with everything you have. Do less, but choose the things you do based on what genuinely matters to your deepest values and your highest vision. And you will accomplish more in less time, with more joy and with a body and mind that are not headed toward catastrophic breakdown. Now let's talk about the ninth thing. And this one is the one that I believe sits underneath every single item on this list. The ninth thing you need to remove from your life immediately is self-doubt, not self-criticism, not humility, not the honest assessment of your current abilities. I mean the deep, corrosive, cancer-like belief that you are fundamentally not enough, that you are not smart enough, not talented enough, not deserving enough, not capable enough to live the life you were designed for. That belief, and I want to be surgical about this, that belief is a lie. It is the most persistent, most damaging, most widely accepted lie in human history. And it is time to evict it. Here is where self-doubt comes from. It comes from the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It comes from the comparison of your internal experience, all your fears, your insecurities, with other people's external performance, all their highlight reels, their curated successes, their carefully presented victories. So it comes from a handful of formative experiences where you reached for something, fell short, and someone important to you either witnessed that fall or caused it. And in those moments, a story was written in your nervous system, a story that said, maybe I'm not cut out for this. These. And from that day forward, every time you approach the edge of your potential, that story played on repeat, not loud, not always conscious, but constant. Like a low frequency interference in the signal of your life. Daughter, talk about faith for a moment. Not necessarily religious faith, though it can be. I want to talk about the kind of faith that the greatest achievers in history have had, the faith in the yet to be seen. Because self-doubt is fundamentally the absence of faith in your own future. It is the inability to hold a vision of your best self with enough conviction to act on it before the evidence is in. And here is the secret. The evidence is never in first. The evidence comes after the faith. You don't see the result and believe. You believe, and then you see. Every single person who has ever built something remarkable went through a period, often a long, painful, lonely period where they were acting on faith alone, where the data did not support the dream, where the external reality was contradicting the internal vision, and they kept going anyway. Because they had decided that their vision of themselves was more real than the world's current assessment. You need to make that decision. You need to look at the self-doubt, look it directly in the face and say, I see you, I know where you came from, and you are not welcome here anymore. Because here is what I know about you. I know that you would not be here. You would not have read this far. You would not feel the weight of these words the way you do, unless there was something in you that knows. Something that has always known that you are capable of more than you have allowed yourself to become. That voice, the one underneath the doubt, the one that persists even when the fear is loudest, that voice is the truth, and the doubt is the interference. Remove the interference. Tune back into the truth, and live from there to turn finally, the 10th thing, the last thing on this list. And I have saved it for last because it is, in many ways, the one that makes all the others possible. The 10th thing you need to remove from your life immediately is the postponed life. The what? Let me explain. The postponed life is the life you are planning to start living once something changes. Once you lose the weight, once you get the job, once the kids are older, once the money is better, once the timing is right, once you feel ready, once you feel confident, once the fear goes away. The postponed life is the life that is always one condition away from beginning. And it is without question the greatest tragedy I encounter in human beings. Not death, not failure, not loss. The postponed life. Because here is the truth about timing. The timing is never perfect. The conditions are never ideal. The fear never fully goes away. The money is never quite enough. The confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a byproduct. You don't feel confident and then act. You act and the action creates the confidence. But so many people are waiting at the start line for a gun that is never going to fire. They are waiting for a signal from the universe that says, now. Now is the perfect moment. Now everything is aligned. Now it is safe. And that signal does not come because life does not work that way. Life does not reward waiting. Life rewards starting. Imperfect, scared, underprepared starting. Underprepared starting. Messy, stumbling, fumbling your way through starting. That is the only kind of starting there is. And it is infinitely superior to waiting.